Today on Team Room Talk, the mission and purpose of Team Room, War, Hope, and Growth. Hi, this is Richard Davis, President and Advisor of Team Room, War, Hope, and Growth. And today I just want to be able to share about our mission on Team Room and what we do. So bottom line up front is that we are an educational ministry. This is a nonprofit filing and working through the 1023 application right now with the IRS determination agent. But we are seeking to be a federally recognized nonprofit that is a educational ministry to help churches, pastors, chaplains, caregivers, seminary students to understand our warfighters and their families. Um, we want to be able to provide a practical response when it comes to post-traumatic stress, when it comes to moral injuries, when it comes to secondary traumatic stress on there. We want to be able to show them the hope and the forgiveness and walking through these things. We also want to talk about sleep, and you will see 16 different lessons on our website at teamroom.aplos.org that have been produced to be able to teach on these topics. There are a lot of nonprofits that exist to be able to care for the warfighter, to be able to help them process and walk through what they're struggling with. And that is fantastic, and it's needed. And I praise God for these nonprofits that have started to be able to provide these types of programs for our warfighters and their families. But Team Room, War, Hope, and Growth exists to be able to educate local churches, pastors, chaplains, caregivers, and others that are working with the military community. As a former pastor, I served as a military pastor for almost 10 years here in Clarksville, Tennessee, and just saw the need that there needs to be more churches engaged in this type of ministry. I wrote my dissertation on developing an integrated trauma care ministry where the church will be more involved walking with the warfighters and their families. And this came about after my time on staff, but also being able to talk with veterans and spouses, is that they would come in struggling, wanting to have more understanding, seeking help, guidance on there, or spouses asking, is that my warfighter is struggling and I don't know what to do. And the church, and there's research on this that shows that churches and nonprofits or other non-professional entities that are more likely to experience a first-time visits, someone seeking help, than going to a mental health counselor. So we see that, but the church has been absent, in my opinion, but also in other books that have been written on the same thing, is that when it comes to mental health, is that the church has been silent. And there are many that are advocates in getting the church back on track and being able to care for those who are struggling. And Team Room, War, Hope, and Growth, our focus is narrow, is that we look at combat veterans and their struggles with their family members. So when you visit the website and look at the various lessons, the 16 lessons that we have, it's going to be geared around combat. This comes back from my experience as a combat veteran with 6 combat deployments between Afghanistan and Iraq, being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and with traumatic brain injury. These are things that I walked through myself, and I've also seen in the pastoral ministry with others. And so my desire is to be able to educate other organizations, other churches, pastors, chaplains, caregivers on being able to develop an integrated trauma care ministry where you can walk with our combat veterans and their spouses. We don't need to be professionals. We just need to have a basic foundational knowledge of what is post-traumatic stress disorder. How does it impact us, mind, body, and soul? We have to remember we're created in God's image, mind, body, and soul. And combat will impact us, mind, body, and soul. So we want to be able to look at each of these from a Christian worldview to be able to provide a practical response. And that comes from the biblical rationale that I use in my dissertation, and I also provide it on the website, is from Matthew chapter 9, verses 35 through 38. in that context, Jesus is walking through many cities and villages, and he's healing people of a variety of diseases and ailments. And they're coming to him helpless and harassed. And when you combine those two words, helpless and harassed, they just don't know where to go. They don't know where to turn. But Jesus is there, and he has compassion for them. And that key word, compassion, is what I want to focus on just a little bit, but it's also going to be a future video where I dive into that context of that text a little bit more deeply. But we often like to lift this verse out of its context in that Jesus is looking out over the harvest in the fields, and he looks to his disciples and he says, the harvest is ready and is plentiful. And pray for the Lord of the harvest to send out more into his harvest. So we use that, we'll lift that for evangelistic appeal and call. But the context is that Jesus is looking at a lot of people with mental health issues that are struggling with physical issues. These are people who don't know where to turn, and they're coming to him. And this is the context that Jesus is looking, and he's turning to his disciples and says, this is the mission field that you're going to be in. Have compassion for them. That's the compassion that Jesus had. Jesus had a practical response. And so what we want to do at Team Room More Hope and Growth is being able to educate others in that practical response. Understanding what is post-traumatic stress, understanding what is secondary traumatic stress, understanding that traumatic brain injury is a neurological injury, from there. I'm not going to say disorder, but it's an injury, a neurological, physical injury to the brain. And so we want to be able to help our churches know this, that you can walk with our combat veterans. We don't have to listen to Hollywood and how Hollywood has depicted the combat veteran on there with all these issues. Is that we need to take a more aggressive, compassionate response. We can be there for our community, our veterans in our community. We can be there, those who are struggling, not just a combat veteran, but also their spouse, on their families. War has changed the entire family. The war has changed the warfighter, but it's also changed their spouse on there. It's also impacted their children on there. So these are things that we look at and that we teach from a Christian worldview on there as a organization. So again, thank you for your time and listening about Team Room, More Hope and Growth, our mission, our purpose, and what we're trying to provide. I encourage you to take a look at our website at teamroom.applos.org. See what we got coming up. We got some projects coming up. I'll be speaking in New Mexico and Washington State later on this year. We're also working with a seminary in Ukraine when it comes to working with those and helping those process moral injuries. So again, thank you for watching. Take a look more at the website, but be watching more for Team Room Talk videos to be dropping in the future. So take care. God bless.